Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. Here we are again talking about mental health, and this is going to be our final session for some time. So we'll talk about that as we go on. So I hope you guys are feeling okay. Please let me know as you come on if you're both able to hear and see me to make sure that all this is operating correctly. So I'll give everybody a minute to get in. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. I see people are coming on. So let me know if you can see and hear me, and if you can see what I wrote in the chat so that I can know that all of this is functioning well. Hope you guys are doing well. Here we are on the final Wednesday of March. I'm going to be continue speaking about mental health, but today I'm going to speak about it in a little bit of a different way because we're going to be speaking about margin. Margin is the ability to have a little something left over after you've done everything that you've had to do. So I understand that's not easy for everyone. We're all overloaded. However, some of us may be overloaded to the point of getting burnt out, and that leads to a lot of other things. So we'll see what that looks like. Thank you guys. I see Michelle. Thank you, Michelle, for letting me know. Enid, Mother Wildflower Seeds. I love that. Marcos, good evening. How are you? AJ, hello, Eliana, Melody. Good evening. God bless you all. I'm glad you guys are on. So, as I said before, tonight is our final session in this forum. I've had a great, fantastic time with you guys, and I appreciate you guys coming on every Wednesday. I hope to do this again at some other point, and you guys let me know if it was good for you, if it was instructive for you. I know a lot of you out there have a lot of information. This field is so huge, so huge that we could speak about this every week for a year or more than that. So I appreciate your input and I appreciate your ideas for future classes or for future forums on mental health or any other topic pertaining to the way our brains function, what's going on inside of us in terms of being mentally healthy. All of that is absolutely very important. Hey, Eileen, good to see you there. So tonight we're going to continue, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a recap of all that we've done to this point, and you guys can chime in at any time. And then as I go towards the end, towards the midpoint and the end, we will be speaking about margin. Now, margin, I know you guys know what margins are. Margins are the space around a paper that you don't write into. Now, if you write in that space, it makes it harder for everything else to be read. In the same way, if you have no margin in your life, if you have no space in your life, you are going to be a difficult person to deal with. But you're also going to have difficulty in dealing with other individuals because that means that there's no space for you in any direction. We're going to get into that a lot more as we go on. But before we do that, let's talk about what everything that we have spoken about to this point. I'm going to do a general recap and we will continue speaking about margin. So, my intention in bringing this forum together was to talk about mental health, not mental illness. Mental health in general, it covers mental illness, but mental health in terms of us being able to function in this society with all of the difficulties that are occurring with this pandemic that really has devastated us. Some people are saying, I was hearing a news report that it might take an entire generation. Now, maybe that's a bit much, but that it might take an entire generation for us to recover from this. Certainly, students that I work with, it's going to take them 2 or 3 years to get back on track. Now, for a student, 2 or 3 years means that they have now finished middle school, they are in high school, or that they have now finished high school, and they're not quite sure if they're going to be able to make it in other vocational programs or in college. So 2 or 3 years in their lives is different than 2 or 3 years in our lives because we're older. We're able to bounce back. We have some sort of mental health or some way of dealing with what's going on around us. We usually have some coping strategies, whether they are healthy or unhealthy, we have them. And so we are able to get by on all the years that we have gotten by. That is not the same for a younger individual. because their life continues to go. You're not expecting that you're going to have a 15 or a 16-year-old in middle school. Well, unfortunately, that's what it looks like because they've been put so far behind. That's a topic for another time, but this is the reality of what we're dealing with. So mental health in general is the ability to be able to deal with all of life stressors in whatever fashion they come. And so when I began this forum on mental health, we started talking about people who have positive mental health. In other words, they are able to function well. They are realizing their full potential. What does that mean? That they continue to gain in all areas of their lives. Now, of course, there are always some setbacks. There are some areas where they may be diminishing. They're not doing as well as other individuals, but the reality is that they are able to function. So they're realizing their potential. They're moving forward. They're studying. They're doing all the necessary things that it takes to live in this world. They're able to cope with the stresses of life. If you have good mental health, you in general, of course, we're speaking in generalities. You generally are able to cope with the stresses of life. You're able to get up in the morning. You're able to go to work. You're able to get dressed. There are some people suffering. They are unable to get dressed. Now, it could be for mental situations, but it could also be because of physical infirmity. So we have to keep that in mind. If you have positive mental health, you are able to work productively. In other words, you go out and you do whatever your tasks are, and at the end of that day or the end of the week or the month, whatever, you have shown some productivity that you've gotten from point A to point B to point C to point D, that you are not going backwards, but that you're actually making some movement forward. You're making progress. And positive mental health means that you are making a meaningful contribution to your community. What does that mean? Your community might be your school. Your community might be your church. Your community might literally be the place where you live, your neighborhood. You are making some meaningful contribution. Now, that's simple stuff. A meaningful contribution could be that you go and you sweep the sidewalk when people drop stuff there. That's a meaningful contribution. In your job, that you are focused on your students. Let's say if you work in a school, but that you are also not just focused on them, but helping them to understand what life looks like and what life is. You're helping them with their ABCs and with their math and whatever. Again, you're making a meaningful contribution. So you're doing something that helps other individuals. And let's not say that's small or large. It's what it is. You're doing something to help somebody else. So all of those are products of positive mental health. Okay, so that's important to consider. And we also spoke about ambivalence. Now, ambivalence is when we kind of are a little swaying. We're swaying a little bit. We're not sure of one thing or the other thing. We have some choices to make. The In motivational interviewing, when you're speaking to someone to help them move forward from one place to another, we call that, or some synonyms for that are uncertainty, doubt, or indecision. But in motivational interviewing, we call that the simultaneous presence of conflicting motivations. In other words, I want to do this, and at the same time, I don't want to do this. Hey, I want to go to the supermarket. No, I don't want to go to the supermarket. I want to work out. No, I don't want to work out. So at the same time, does that happen to anybody? At the same time, simultaneously, you have conflicting motivations. I need to eat, but I don't want to cook. Well, that's ambivalence there. So a person suffering, well, it's not a terrible thing that you're dying from it, but who is conflicted in this way, what's going on there? They are expressing both pro-change and counter-change arguments at the same time. So they may be saying, I need to work out because I've gained so much weight and I feel unhealthy. And at the same time, wow, those leftovers look pretty good. I want to eat that instead of working out. That's the ambivalence, okay? And some choices are being made there. Jay says, that was me yesterday. I didn't want to cook. Listen, I get it. So we spoke about ambivalence. We also spoke about emotional vampires, and I showed you the book, Albert J. Bernstein, PhD. And what was the focus of the book is Dealing with people who drain you dry. Anybody know anybody that drains them dry? Please don't put any names up here. But dealing with people that drain you dry. They suck the life out of you. They go on and on and on and on and on. Before you know it, you don't know what to do with yourself. It's like you're in a whirlwind. There's circles going around you. That those emotional vampires are the ones that sometimes make us not want to deal with people, not want to work with people, not want to talk to anybody, because they take out a lot of they take up a lot of our energy. Now, it is up to us to decide if we are going to allow these individuals to continue to take up our energy. That doesn't mean that you're not dealing with them anymore. What that does mean is that you will go and you will meet with these people, because they could be relatives and they may need your help, and you'll meet with them. But you're going to they may not understand where you're coming from. But what you have to do is, okay, this person doesn't understand where I'm coming from, so I'm going to do what I came to do, and I'm going to leave. That's it. No argument, no fighting, no problems. What you have to understand is that sometimes some individuals really, 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 really don't understand. Today in my job, for example, I greet all of the children. I stand in the front and I greet all the children as they come into the school. I try to know the names of all the students, not just the students that I give counseling to, but every single student. And so I greet them. They gave me a pound. Some of them want to slap my hand, whatever. They'll give me a nudge with the elbow. Fantastic. I go to the next building, which is close to mine, and one kid who's autistic, and low functioning or autism. So he really jumps around. He's nonverbal, but every day he'll give me a pound. Fine. He jumped up in the air because he was so excited. He couldn't self-regulate for that moment. So excited, he jumped up in the air. I have my pen in my hand because I'm always writing the students that I see that come into the building, and my pen fell onto the floor, and it broke. It didn't function anymore. I could not be angry with that child. I could not tell that kid, "What are you doing?" I could not try to push that kid to sit down. He's an autistic child, low functioning, nonverbal. What he was doing was being excited in the way he gets excited. That's it. That's who he is. And we need to come to an understanding of some individuals if we're going to work with them. That's it. We need to come to an understanding of them. Sometimes we make the mistake of saying they need to understand me. No. If you're the one providing the help, then it is up to you. You have put it upon yourself to be the helper. So if you're the helper, you're going to deal with all the stuff that helpers deal with. I know you understand that. So you got to deal with it. So that was about emotional vampires. And that student that I was talking about, that's not an emotional vampire. That's just an example of someone whose developmental level I have to understand. He doesn't have to understand me. Then we spoke about, we also spoke about post-traumatic stress. Now, stress in general is usually not a good thing. However, it can be. Stress from working out, good stress. Stress from learning to play an instrument, good stress. Stress from studying and being a little tired from studying, good stress, because you're gaining something from those things. But I have in my notes here, post-traumatic stress. So after something happened, a trauma, whatever the trauma is, you fill in the blank. Post-traumatic stress is a helpful mechanism created by God as a response to threats to our safety. So something's happening, whatever it is, and you get some stress from that. What happens? In the crisis moments, right? When you're in the middle of whatever the situation is, your frontal lobe becomes disabled. Decision making is handled by the amygdala, another part of your brain. Blood flow is redirected from vital organs to the muscles So they come over here and over here and on your thighs and on your behind so that you're ready to take some action to increase strength. Awareness of pain is lessened. This is a normal reaction to post-traumatic stress. So we spoke a little bit about that. We have to understand that some of the ways that we are reacting are normal. You don't have to get all out of sorts because you're feeling a particular way. Yes, somebody insulted you. Now you're stressed. You clench your teeth. You tense your muscles. You're ready to knock them out. Don't do that. But what I'm saying is these are normal reactions to some stress that just occurred. And we have to understand, good, that you are able to react. You know what that means? That your body is functioning the way your body should function. So we spoke about post-traumatic stress. And then the last part that I'm going to cover before we go into today's session is we spoke about loss and grief, how we suffer from those things. And I mentioned Diane Langberg. She's a world-renowned expert on sexual abuse. And we're not really focusing on that, but she knows a little something about trauma. And she told us that simply speaking words, no matter how true, is not sufficient when responding to abuse victims. So when we're dealing with someone that has been hurt, has been damaged by another individual, you can't just talk to them. What does that mean? It means that you have to be a nurturing presence to them. So that also means that you're going to have to come down to the level wherever they're at. Now, I know this for a fact. It may be difficult for some people to receive counseling from me. I get it because of the tone of my voice, my affect, and my appearance. I get it. A person who has been victimized, most likely a woman, may not be able to be counseled by me because of what she has gone through. So I can't be offended by that. I have to understand. I step aside and someone else comes in. So it's not a matter of my knowing the right words. I certainly know them. That's not the point. The point is the person prepared to receive them? And are they prepared to receive them from me? If not, someone else can step in. And we need to understand that sometimes we just need to get out of the way and someone else comes in. Diane Langberg tells us that when we're dealing with someone that has been traumatized, we have to learn from Jesus. What did Jesus do? And she mentioned 6 things, which I mentioned before. I'll go through them quickly. Number 1, we have to leave glory. In other words, we need to leave the place where we're comfortable and enter into that person's suffering. Number 2, we need to become little. In other words, reduce yourself in helping others. Jesus, being in the likeness of God, the Bible says, didn't hold on to that, but he diminished himself. He allowed himself to be born and come into this world and to be taught. The one that created the universe allowed himself to be taught so that he could help somebody else. So he became little. Number 3, you have to enter into darkness. You know what that means? Simply that you don't know what's coming. You don't know how that person is going to react. You have to be able to be with that person in that place where momentarily there's no light. Perhaps you're going to become the light. Number 4, you're going to bear the character of the Father, of Father God, full of grace and truth, not full of wrath and anger. Understand that. Number 6, we don't abandon those that are in need. We don't do that. We help them endure the suffering and we suffer with them. And number 6, do not lose perspective and allow your thinking to be distorted. And that's one of the things we're going to cover today when we're speaking about margin. Sometimes when you've been helping individuals for a long time, you can become angry, you can become bitter, you can become tired. We call that vicarious traumatization. You are now traumatized from the trauma of other individuals. That is when you step back and let somebody come in. There's nothing wrong with that. So that one was, do not lose perspective. Do not allow your thinking to be distorted. Do not be overcome by darkness. And remember, you cannot call or instruct people out of suffering. We have to be a sanctuary for those who have been hurt in whatever way. Okay, so that's just a recap on everything that we have studied until now. I'm going to come to margin in a minute. I'm gonna take a breather, and you tell me your thinking on those topics that we covered, and if that is something that you have had to deal with in the past. Now, of course, you got to be brief, but just in general, your thoughts on those things that we have already covered before we come into today's session. I know that's a lot, so you just put whatever you think. No takers? Nobody saying anything? I know that's a lot of material out there. So we spoke about mental health, ambivalence, emotional vampires, post-traumatic stress, and entering into other people's suffering. So now we're going to get into margin. What is margin? This is a book. Let me show you the book. Excellent book. Let's see how well I can display it so you guys can see it. Margin by Richard A. Swenson, MD. This is what we're going to be speaking about today. But going back to the question I just asked, Jay says the emotional vampires are the ones I seem to minister to on a regular basis. The challenge is difficult. Okay, no wonder I always see you drained. I got it. I got it. And Eileen says, can I get CE credits from this class? Absolutely. For a small fee. I got you. I would love to do that in the future. That would be fantastic. But we're not there yet. So you saw the book, Margin, and you saw the title of the author, Richard A. Swenson. He's a doctor, and he's talking about us being able to function in society by having space. So this is the title of the book, Margin: Restoring Emotional, Physical, Financial, and Time Reserves to Overloaded Lives. Anybody need that? Does anybody need that? I think we all do. And what is margin? Margin is the space between our load and our limits. It is the amount allowed beyond that which is needed. It is something held in reserve for contingencies or unanticipated situations. Margin is the gap between rest and exhaustion, the space between breathing and suffocating. Margin is the opposite of overload or burnout. Now, what do you think? Anybody need some margin in their lives? Yeah, I think we all do. We need margin. So I'll ask a question before I go on. Why do you think we don't have margin in our lives? Why do you think we don't have margin in our lives? Get your fingers on the keyboards there, typing away. Why do you think we don't have margin in our lives? I gave you the definition. Okay. Farah says, I need that book. I just jumped on. So you can retrace a little bit later on and you can get the title of the book. Fantastic book. Yeah, Myrna. I know it takes a little while for things to be to come up here. She says, I've had to deal with emotional vampires on many occasions, and I've had to take it to the Lord in prayer because it's as if they just don't understand. And that's true. That sometimes it is as if they don't understand. Sometimes they certainly do. Jay says, I think the trainings help a great deal. Okay, he also says that he's learned to manage better in the last couple of years. So the definition of margin: margin is the space between our load and our limits. It is the amount allowed beyond that which is needed. It is something held in reserve for contingencies or unanticipated situations. Margin is the gap between rest and exhaustion, the space between breathing and suffocating. Margin is the opposite of overload. And the question on the floor is, how come we don't have margin in our lives? Enid says, we don't know how to limit set or handle time management. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Absolutely. Jay says, we sometimes focus so much on solving the issue that we lose ourselves and become overwhelmed. We don't have margin in our life. Or Farah says, we don't have margin in our lives because sometimes we find it hard to say no. Oh, absolutely. So we say yes to everything and overload our schedules. We need to set healthy boundaries and learn that it's okay to say no. Okay. Naomi right here says that we want to do it all regardless if we can or not. Jay says we sometimes empty the tank. And the problem is not the empty tank, is that we don't take time to refill it properly. Wait a minute. This is jumping. Okay, you guys are responding now. Good. Carmen says sometimes we give all of ourselves in a non-stop mode. And do you know? Do you know that Jesus took time to take breaks? He took breaks. He would go away. The Bible says numerous times he would go away to pray and to be alone. Sometimes we need that. Ricky says, where are you? Sometimes we feel we need the space in the margins to write in to get the work done. But in reality, we take away from the work when we do write in the margins. Absolutely. If you think, I don't have a sheet of paper close to me, but if you think about a sheet of paper, when you write in the margins, you make it much more difficult to read sometimes. Think of a sheet of paper. Well, here, I can just give you, so I have a sheet of paper, right? You see my notes there, but on the outside of the notes, there's spaces here, there's spaces here, there's space on the bottom, and there's space on the top. If I had print all over those, I wouldn't be able to read what I wrote here. And when we write in the margins, now of course you could write on one line, but when we continually write in the margins, what occurs? We actually mess ourselves up because we don't even know what we wrote sometimes. Jenny says sometimes we get too involved. You know what? I've seen that. And the problem is not too much involvement. It's wrong involvement. We get emotionally involved. We get inside other people's family business. We go too far sometimes. Sometimes we want to solve people's problems. That's not our call. We give people tools. They then take those tools and use them. Okay, Eliana says that we may not have margins because we have fluid or no boundaries, and that's a dangerous place to be sometimes. Of course, if you're working with people outside of your home, that's something you should not do. When you're working with family members, that's a little bit different because now you already have you're intertwined. Yeah, Dima says we don't set any boundaries. Ricky says we feel guilt when we do not give everything or our all. Yeah, we do feel guilt about that, and sometimes that guilt is a guilt that we place upon ourselves because it is not God guilt tripping us. God is like, you need to slow down, you need to rest, you need to stop, and we're like, no, I could do it, I could do it. Listen, at some time we have to rest. And Porter says we feel guilty when we overburden ourselves. Yes, sometimes we do, and we have to be careful about that. Yeah, Jay says we end up in the middle of the mess and we get hurt emotionally and at times physically. You know, which is the kind of um, situation where police officers hate to respond to? Domestic violence situations. You know why? Because that couple could be fighting with themselves, but when the police come on the scene and they try to arrest one of them, they get jumped by the other person. That happens all the time. And so what happens? We need to know if we are going to make a meaningful difference in a person's life before we go too far. And always keep this in mind. There's two sides to every story. Keep that in mind. Yeah, Jay says we blur the lines. Yeah, unfortunately. And we get burnt by blurring those lines. Okay, so that was all about why we don't have any margin. The author, Richard A. Swenson, talks about 5 environments in which the world lives, generally speaking, and he talks about where we have made some progress and where we get most of our pain. So he says most of our progress has come in our physical environment. So, for example, we've done great progress in these things: wealth, technology, health, talking about medicine, and this is basically the material world. We're doing well in those areas, okay? That doesn't mean that we're doing fantastic, but we're doing well in those areas. And then we're also making some progress in the cognitive environment, in knowledge, in information, in education, or in the intellectual world. We're doing pretty good there, right? However, so that's where we're making a lot of progress. This is where a lot of our pain comes from, what I'm going to tell you now. In the social environment, our family, our friends, our neighbors, in the church, this is where a lot, or if not all of our pain comes from. Yeah, I said the church, that's there too. Number 4, the emotional environment, another place where pain comes from. Feelings and attitudes, the psychological world. And number 5, some of our pain comes from the spiritual environment, what we call the eternal or the transcendent, basically God. We are trying to figure God out. We're trying to think, wow, am I doing God's will? Am I not doing God's will? You know, if every time a study is given on knowing your purpose, everybody jumps on it. And so how many, you tell me, how many sessions on knowing your purpose you got to go to over the course of your life before you finally know your purpose, huh? Now I'm being facetious there, but this is the reality. This is the reality. We need to understand that we are living. You're alive. You're alive. Be present to the fact that you are alive and move according to the talents that you have received. And if you can accentuate those things, then do it. Because then you're going to feel fulfilled. You don't have to be looking for all your purpose all the time. Right now, what's your purpose? To breathe. Just breathe. Calm down. Allow the Spirit of God to minister to you. You don't always have to be moving. But that's something that we learn over time. So, in those 5 environments is most of our progress and is most of our pain. Now, the author asks a question. And thank you, Nicola, for saying I do. Okay. What if we begin measuring our progress not by our wealth, but by our virtue, not by our education, but by our humility, and not by our power, but by our meekness? Doesn't that change things around? Isn't that the Sermon on the Mount right there? We all know it. Jesus is asking for radical thinking because you know what? What this world thinks is important in God's economy might be garbage. It might mean nothing. It's dribble. It's dribble for God, and yet we make a big deal out of those things. A big deal out of those things. So we have to keep this in mind. So perhaps we need to rethink how we think when we're talking about whatever progress we are making, because we want to develop margin. William Wilberforce said this: above all, measure your progress by your experience of the love of God and its exercise before men. What does that mean? Show who you are by loving God, and then people are going to know who you are as you love them. And that's really, really, really important, because we have made other things more basic than that. That's basically the scripture. That's John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. So what? So that no one should perish, but all would come to eternal life. God gave. The greatest giver is God. He's not a taker, he's a giver. And as we get on into this, we're going to see that perhaps that's one of the ways that we can develop more margin by giving, but not just by giving to your empty. We're not talking about divesting yourself of every single thing. It's talking about being mindful of the fact that you also deserve to have some stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And at the same time, you can also give away some stuff. So let's get on into that. We need margin in at least 4 areas: in emotional energy, physical energy, time, and in finances. So if I ask you a question, do you have all the emotional energy that you need? Do you have all the physical energy that you need? Do you have all the time that you need? Do you have all the finances that you need? Yes or no? Wow, nobody's typing yes or no there. The answer is we should have. And the answer we give is no, we don't have those things. And now let's get to the bottom of why don't we have margin in emotional energy? Why don't we have margin in physical energy? Why don't we have margin with our time? Why don't we have margin with our finances? So let's get into it in the time that we have left. We have 22 minutes left. So in terms of emotional energy, so this is what happens. So if you have emotional overload, right? Or we also call it being burnt out. If you're burnt out, what happens? If you have emotional overload, it saps your strength, it paralyzes your resolve, and it maximizes your vulnerability, leaving the door open for even further margin erosion. And we're just talking about emotional energy right now. When you are burnt out emotionally, boy, somebody tells you good morning and you want to curse them out. You can't hear anybody. That's a dangerous place to be. And we have to be very careful about that. We have to develop. The possibility of having more emotional energy. Well, Nancy says I do. Fantastic. But I also know that I see some of your posts on Facebook. You're walking in the morning and you're doing things that you have learned bolster you. So that's what we're going to come to. So if you don't have emotional energy, I'm going to give you 5 things that you can do. Now, there's a lot more than this. These are just some of the ones that I chose from the book. And there's some things that you're probably doing in your life that strengthens you. But if you right now are lacking emotional energy, some simple things to do. 1, cultivate emotional supports. What does that mean? Simply find one person that you can talk to that is not going to guilt trip you. That's it. It doesn't even have to be another person that works with you, that goes to church with you. Just find another person with whom you can develop an emotional, get some emotional support from. That is so important, because this is a danger for us. If you only get all your emotional support from one place, sometimes that is the very place that is making you tired. And so you need to step away from there. I'm not talking about leaving church or leaving your job or any of those things, or leaving a marriage. Absolutely not. I'm telling you about Just find one person that can emotionally support you, that can listen to you without judging you. Very important. Number two, reconcile relationships. You know that sometimes there's some bad endings to some relationships. I know some individuals here took the class on peacemaking that I gave a few months ago. Really important. The Peacemaker, a wonderful book for everyone here to get. The Peacemaker. Look for it at some point. We need to close some doors that have remained open too much in our lives, and it saps our emotional energy. So if you can reconcile relationships, that doesn't mean you get back together with somebody. It means that you make peace with the person as far as you can. Number three, serve one another. Serve one another. That's important. Nicola says no food included. Well, come on, you gotta feed me if we're gonna be talking, but that's okay. Serve one another. What does that mean? You know what? Pick me up when I'm down. I'll pick you up when you're down. It's a give and a take. Give and a take. Serve one another. Number four, laugh, but also cry. That is so important. We are afraid, and I understand why. We are afraid sometimes to be emotionally vulnerable before other individuals. This is something that men often suffer from, because we're going to be considered sissies or punks or stuff like that. Whatever, big deal. But this is the reality. Sometimes we have to be able to laugh at ourselves. This is something that I've done in the job sometimes. I'm so stressed. I'll go to my computer, I'll open Google, and I'll look at jokes. I'll literally read jokes. And I'll look up jokes for kids, and I'll just sit there and read them and laugh. Why? Because I got to get my mind off the nonsense that's surrounding me. But then also, sometimes you got to cry. You know what crying is? Crying is your soul releasing negative energy. That's okay. Maybe you don't want to do that in front of somebody, but that's okay. Laugh and cry. Thank you, Jay, for posting the name of that book, The Peacemaker, A Biblical Guide to Resolving Personal Conflict. Fantastic book. Get it if you guys can get it. I think Amazon has it. Number five, we're talking about getting more margin in emotional energy. Number five, create, and a bunch of you guys said it here, create appropriate boundaries. You must create appropriate boundaries. You are not a carpet to be walked all over. You got to be careful about that stuff. If you're always available, when you're not available, you're a bad guy. So even if you're available, sometimes you got to say, right now, I'm not available. You know why? Because you're resting. That's okay. Nothing wrong with resting. Just keep that in mind. It's counterintuitive sometimes, especially if you're a type A personality. You got to get things done. I have that problem sometimes. Sometimes you have to say, not right now. I can't do that right now. That's okay. So that's all emotional energy. Getting margin in emotional energy. Now let's talk about physical energy. And Myrna, you got it. Laughter is good for the soul. Absolutely. And we need to understand. We need to understand that. Faris says facts. I'm not available. Yeah, sometimes we have to say it. Physical energy. Lacking margin in physical energy, we feel underrested and overwhelmed. I have recognized, I get up really early in the morning. I have recognized that I need to go to bed at a certain time, or I'm a zombie the next day. Now, of course, sometimes you're unable to. I get it. It should not be a habit that you're not getting enough rest every night. Of course, there are some circumstances that you cannot help. It should not be every night. You know what that means? You got to turn off that television. You got to turn off your phone. You got to unplug the radio. You got to get off the social media at some point, because if you do that late at night, you know what? Your brain never turns off. So even though you were in that bed for 6 or 7 or 8 hours, your brain never turned off. So you never rested. So we have to understand that. So we feel underrested and overwhelmed. with no strength left, we're talking about physical energy, with no strength left for our own needs, let alone for the needs of others. We put our tiredness to bed, hoping tomorrow will be a stronger day. And you can't hope for those things if you're not taking care of yourself in a way so that that can occur. That's really important. So, what can you do about your physical energy? Well, and I'm getting some messages on Messenger that doesn't translate to here. So if you're here, you got to write on this chat regarding your physical energy. You have to take personal responsibility for you. It's your body. You know, we talk about it's a temple of the Holy Spirit. Why are you abusing the temple of the Holy Spirit? Don't do that. Take care of yourself. Overeating, undereating, no. Take care of yourself so that if you really want to minister, you're going to have a long life to minister, generally speaking, of course. So, number one, take personal responsibility for your health. Number two, change your habits. One thing that I have done, I've tried to throughout my life since I was a teenager, I have tried to work out. Now, because I am getting older, I have learned that I can work out twice the time and get less results than I used to in the past. So what have I had to do? I've changed the way I work out. I do more cardio and less weights. Why? Because my body has changed, but I don't stop working out. In pain or whatever, I feel really good after I work out. Even though I'm tired before I work out, after I work out, I'm energized. So make it a lifestyle, make it a habit that you take care of yourself physically. Number three, we mentioned this one already. Value your sleep. That's really important. You got to value your sleep. Number four, eat nutritious food. Did you hear the word in the middle? Nutritious. Eat nutritious food. Now I know don't start with me. Those that see me putting steaks on on Facebook. I love me a good steak. I get it. I don't have that every day. I have it once in a while. I know some of you concerned about my cholesterol, but anyway, that's not the point here. Eat nutritious food. Take care of what you. Well, thank you, Jay. Thanks. Take care of yourself. You know what? Fruits, vegetables, water. Nicola says, I'm putting the cake away now. Save me a piece, please. Eat nutritious food. That doesn't mean that you don't have your cake or you don't have your cookies, but you know what? It's not all cakes and cookies, because eventually what happens? Your body it becomes sugar. You become a sugar. No, 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 no. You gotta take care of yourself. Eat that good food that's gonna bolster. You know that food. Eileen sent me an article on this a few weeks ago. Food can change the way you think. Nutritious food will change the way you think because it gives you the things that your body needs. So just keep that in mind. Paula says she just ate a flan. Well, thank you. I expect one at some point. And number five, I mentioned this one already. Exercise according to your ability. Listen, you're not gonna forget about the Arnold Schwarzenegger exercise plan. Throw that book away, please. Exercise according to your ability. Do what you can do. You know what? If you can walk a half a mile, a quarter mile, 1,000 steps, whatever it is, do that. That is the beginning of health for you. And there's no age. You can start that at any age. I'm astounded. I see this a woman who at the age of 70 is lifting weights. She looks incredible at 70. So what does that mean? There really are no limitations there now, of course. If you have injuries and other things, you have to be careful. But we're talking about here being mindful of your physical energy. You want to be able to move. One of the goals that I've had, a lifetime goal, is that when I'm older, I am able to care for myself. That I don't need someone else caring for me. Now things happen. That can happen. But if it's up to me, if it's up to me, I'll live a long and fruitful and strong life until the day I die. Something's gonna get me, but I'll try my best. Ah, Jenny says swimming. I have swimming at my gym and I love it. That is fantastic. I remember as a teenager, I had a lot of asthma. The doctor recommended swimming. And I used to go to St. Mary's Gym down in the South Bronx with my friends, and I loved it. Fantastic exercise. So that's physical energy. And then we have time. Time. As the we need some people have no time. We need margin in our time. So look at how we talk about time. We talk of no time, lack of time, not enough time, or being out of time, trying to get more time. We borrow time only to incur a time debt and wind up with even less time. It is fitting, listen what the author says, it is fitting that a society with urgency as its emblem should have tranquilizers as its addiction. You understand that? We medicate ourselves because we're rushing to get everywhere because we never have enough time. Why do we never have enough time? Because we don't use our time wisely. And that's important. We don't use our time wisely. And good for you, Emily. Says you'll be eating more salads. Excellent. That's something that we should all be doing. Number one, regarding how we get more margin in our time. We said this before. Learn to say no. No is not a 4-letter word. It's a 2-letter word. We have to understand that. We have to understand that. You have to learn to say no. Farah says, the way my knees are set up, even lunges are not my friend. I work out according to my ability. I do love rowing. It's easy on my knees and a full body workout. There you go. You do what you can do. Nancy tells us, and this is a good resource, anyone on Medicare should check to see if you have silver sneakers, free membership to gyms. Fantastic. And if you are a member of the UFT, for example, they have free or low-cost membership to some gyms, and other unions have that also. So look into that. New York City is big on that. So look into those things. You know, all the resources that are available. It's going to get warm now. Go outside, preferably if you can go with a partner, because, you know, you got people mugging other people. So if you get jumped, somebody else could jump that person that jumped you. But whatever. Don't go alone if you can be with somebody. All right? That's really important. But if you can partner with somebody, you can walk miles. You know why? Because as you're talking, you're not even thinking about the exercise that you're doing. That's fantastic. So consider that. Or get a few people in your building together so that you can just go out together. That'd be fantastic. And on your way, you know what? You meet other people. And there you go. You get some emotional support also. Time. We're talking about time now. So learn to say no. We went on a tangent there. Number two, turn off social media, including the television. You know how much time we waste on social media? How much time we waste on television? Now, I'm not saying, like, say if I'm working out in the basement, I got some movie on or some music, whatever, that's fine. But I'm talking about sitting in front of the boob tube for a few hours and doing nothing. That's not going to help you. You might have it on, but do something productive while that's playing, or whatever social media people are on nowadays. Unfortunately, the students in my school, and these are students that have some serious deficits, their parents give them the phone and they are on that phone getting in trouble all the time. So just keep that in mind. Number three, practice simplicity and contentment. Practice simplicity and contentment. That's really important. Sometimes we have too much. Now, fine, you have money. Buy whatever. You could buy whatever you want to buy. But how many of the things that you buy do you use? It's important to consider. So practice simplicity and contentment. Number four, get less done, but do the right things. You know what that means? You got to make some choices. what is most important to get accomplished on that day or in that week or in that month. Keep that in mind. If you're unable to do everything for whatever reason, you got to prioritize. So get less done, but do the right things. And number 5, create some buffer zones. We're talking about time here. You know what that means? You're going to allocate some time for something that you have to do. This is what I do, for example. Saturdays and sometimes Sundays are the day that I'm doing my doctoral work. So I'm writing a lot. I put music in my living room. I have music, smooth jazz playing there. And then I say, for 1 hour, and I look at the clock, for 1 hour, I am going to work on this paper for 1 hour or whatever it is, for an hour and a half. And I do it for that amount of time, and then I walk away from it. That's it. Create buffer zones. And you know what? You're going to feel successful after you have done that. And finally, finances. Finances. A lot of us suffer in our finances for a variety of reasons. The author says, in the mid-1980s, our international trade deficit turned negative for the first time since 1917. And he goes on to say, as a nation, interest payments threaten us with paralysis. Spending more than we make is a plastic privilege. Credit cards give the perception of prosperity, but the reality of impoverishment. That's really, really kind of scary, actually. We have to be careful about that. So how do we get margin in our finances? You know, I'm astounded sometimes when I come across people that have really good jobs and never have money. Like, what? What? You have a good job and you don't have money? What happened? Well, you know what happened and I know what happened. There's a leak somewhere in their finances. Because I get it. I get it. I get it. You got a mortgage, you got to pay your mortgage. You got a car, you got to pay the car payments. But there's some things that we don't got to do. You got food in your house. Why are you ordering food? You got food in your house. Why are you going out to eat? Think about how much money you spend. If you could calculate it, maybe after I'm finished here, you can go and take out a calculator and calculate how much money you spend eating out in a year. Do it. It might come up to thousands of dollars. It really might. Having food in your home. You might spend more money eating out than if you just bought food and cooked at home. And I get it. You might be tired. Well, sometimes you're going to have to microwave some stuff. But the reality is, we spend a lot of money on things that are not even necessary. They's talking about a plastic reality. Yeah, that's absolutely real. Carmen says, when we were younger, we were definitely foolish financially. However, as retirees, we're much more mindful. Absolutely. And so was I. Well, when I was much younger, I had a lot of credit card debt. Thank God, that's gone. I learned my lesson. I paid them, and that was the end of that. So that was a good thing. Yeah, not the Uber Eats. Yep, that's for sure for me. So that's something to think about. There's some things that we do have to stop doing. So number 1, we're talking about getting margin in your finances. Number 1, break the hold money has over you. You know how? Whew. See if you like this. By giving some money away. You know how? You know what? How that breaks the hold money has over us? Giving neutralizes money's power. You understand that? Give money to a cause instead of spending it on something that's not important. And in giving to that cause, you're going to get the benefit of that person's gratitude or that whatever organization's gratitude. And at the same time, you're letting money know you don't own me. I own you. Because sometimes, and we're not going to get into all that here, It is a spiritual problem with the money. God says in the Bible that He's going to meet all of our needs. It doesn't mean that He's going to meet all of our wants. We gotta think about what that means. Number two, live within your harvest. That's it. And the wording is excellent. Live within your harvest. You got this amount, you live according to that amount. You didn't get what you expected, then you gotta bring it down. That's really important. Number three, disciple your desires and redefine your needs. That's important. You know what? Nothing wrong with buying stuff, but buy what you need. Generally, when I buy a vehicle, I go to Consumer Reports. I look at the stats on that vehicle for the past 3 or 4 years, and then I shop around in different dealerships. I don't talk to anybody in that dealership. I've done this in the last 3 cars that I've bought. I don't talk to anybody there. I do it all by texting or email, and I'm going for the bargain basement price. Whoever gives it to me, that's where I go, and it has worked excellently for me. So disciple your desires and redefine your needs. Again, get control over those things. Wow, Jay, you I wasn't gonna say that, but thank you, you said it. Jay says, I know people driving a Mercedes and yet living with their parents because they cannot get an apartment. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's more important, the apartment or the Mercedes? Absolutely. The apartment is, of course. But this is the reality of our lust and our greed for things that make us look good sometimes. Number four, decrease spending. Doesn't that sound so easy? Decrease spending? Again, how do you do that? Nancy said it a little while ago. Make a realistic budget. Don't just make a budget. Make a realistic budget. This is how much I can live on. But you don't have to be stingy. You can say, okay, good. I'm gonna budget for the month, and one night is my eat out night instead of 3 nights or instead of 4 nights. You're gonna save $100 there. $100 times 12 is $1,200 in the bank. Times 10 years is how much? 12 times 12 is 144. Times 10 years, $14,400, I believe. That's a lot of money. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. We have money falling out of our hands because we don't pay attention to where it goes. And finally, I'm going to take your questions and your comments. It's 8:03, but it's the last day, so we can go a little bit longer if you don't mind. God rested, and he wasn't tired. Keep that in mind. God made margin after creation, but he didn't need any. He didn't need any at all. God rested, and he wasn't tired. You and I can rest even when you're not tired. You know what that means? It doesn't mean lazying around and doing nothing. It just means that at some point you say, you know what? I did this and this and this and this and this. I'm gonna go for a walk. I did this and this and this. I'm gonna lay on the couch and watch some dumb movie. I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna go talk to a family member. Rest is not the same for everybody, but the bottom line is, and I'm gonna say it again, God rested and he wasn't tired. So keep that in mind. You also take time to rest, recharge. You know what? It's not only going to make you a better person, it's going to help you to think better thoughts, and you're going to be able to help somebody else. Oh, Nancy says, I have found that biblical principles on tithing and offerings have ordered and blessed my finances, and I have found the same thing. Absolutely. That's a sermon or a class to itself. Absolutely. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, the more you invest in the kingdom of God, the more you get back, not just in finances, but in a lot of other ways. So I'm going to stop here. Give me your thoughts on these things. We spoke about emotional energy, physical energy, time, and finances. Anything else that you guys do that help you to have margin in these areas? And then we're going to call it a night. Yeah, Nicola says, don't go talking to the vampires. Yeah, that's for sure. What do you guys do to have some margin in these areas? Emotional, physical, time, finances. Myrna says, thank you. Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Give me some of your ideas, and so everyone could read also how you have margin in your life. I mentioned some of mine. One of my big things is working out. Gives me energy and keeps me fit. So I feel good about that. Well, give me one or two one or two things that people can take away from how you have benefit. Nancy says about excuse me, about biblical principles on tithing and giving offerings. Oh, Ricky says turning off the phone really helps. Oh, Nicola says investing in a pet. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big deal. As a matter of fact, the author of the book, Margin, says that sometimes you can have a surrogate. Sometimes you don't have a person, but you have a pet. And investing time in that pet is helpful to you and to the animal. Jay says, I'm glad you reminded me to rest. That is one thing I struggle with regularly. Yeah, all of us do. Jenny says, save your 401k for an important time. Oh, absolutely. Don't be spending crazy. Rick says turning off the phone at a certain time. Yeah, every night I turn off my phone. Carmen says watering and talking to my plants. Laugh out loud. It's definitely a positive for me. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I'm out there and I'm looking at the magnolia tree and some other bushes, and I'm like, hey, you need to grow. You need to look better. You're not looking too good. That's important. Anything else that you guys would share on how you develop some margin in some part of your life? Well, Myrna says, I go to Connecticut, spend time with my grandkids. Okay, Naomi says, putting yourself first is not selfish, and that is important. Sometimes you need to step away from others. Nancy says, okay, wait, this thing jumped. Where was that? Seek the word, pray, organize my life, learn from others, apply and reflect. Absolutely, that's a lot. All of those things are very helpful. Enid says turn off media and notifications on phone, meaning that you have to manually go into check, exercise, take classes that you like writing and dance and plants. Nice. Jay says shutting down social media and opening the word helps me. I'm sorry, this is jumping here. To refocus and ease my life. Absolutely. Nicola says we should do a financial seminar with tithing included. Well, there are people who do that. That is something to consider in the future. Absolutely. So Nancy, keep that in mind. That's asked for there. I think the church may have done that at some point. Okay. Pora says I look at my finances as belonging to God and given to me to use as a good steward. Absolutely. Farah says staying off social media and avoiding the comparison syndrome. Oh, that's excellent. Working out consistently. It takes 21 days to create a habit, so 3 weeks, and resting when needed. Eileen says, I need to work on putting myself first. Yeah, Jay says, I like going on dates with my wife and just chilling. There you go. As some people say, chillaxing. That's really important. So, guys, I'm signing off here. I thank you for your time, for your attention, for the 8 weeks that we spent together. We spent February and March here every Wednesday. I appreciate you guys. I hope that you guys were blessed, that this was instructive for you. I would love to do this again in the future at some point. Give me your ideas. Give me a shout out on Facebook or Messenger so I know what you guys are thinking. And I pray that the Lord blesses you and guides you and strengthens you in absolutely every way. And now I generally do this after I preach a sermon at Open Door Ministries, but I'll tell you, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. God bless you all. Tomorrow or sometime in the weekend, this will be up on Facebook for all of you to look on and reflect again. Please like and share. God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening.